Good morning, everybody. Mary here. So I don't know my phone, the video of this phone. I'm not real savvy on settings and recordings, but I recorded this information I have for you. And when I went to look at it, it was super fast. Like it just sped through it. It eliminated my voice. It eliminated, oh my gosh, it sped it up so fast. And so I had to look at, how did I do that? Yesterday I resined 2 pieces and I tried a different approach as far as how to measure my poster board that I did a video on, and I was explaining in it that when you cut your poster board, try to get a width that will work with your piece, that will be close to the depth of your piece. And I explained how to do that, and it worked well. But also by doing that, you saw me in the video, I believe, I had to sort of push the sides down, because if the poster board gets too close, it lifts the canvas up, and so you're pushing it down. So I tried a different approach and it worked really, really well. And I want to share that with you. What I did is, instead of making the poster board flush, look at this piece of poster board. You can tell I poured on it or something, or I was pouring and slipped out of something. Doesn't matter. It was perfectly fine on the other side, which is what I used. So this poster board, now this piece that I resined, I did too, but let's talk about this piece right here that I resined. I decided to try a different approach. Instead of making the poster board flush, I decided that I would give it a little wiggle room and tape all 4 sides of the back of it. So let me show you how I did that. There's a little piece of thing. See how that just fell right out? So if I tried to do this piece without securing that, that's what would have happened. By the way, look at how good that came out. I'm so proud of this. And I did the other piece too. The moon that you'll see. Back to this. So I took, let's use this piece. This is the same size of the one I just showed you. This is a 10 by 20, not a 12 by 24, which is what I thought it was initially. And then when I went to measure it, I went, oh no, that's not what it is. So let's put the camera down. Instead of trying to make the poster board flush so that it didn't fall out, and I would push it just so, and then because it would be flush, sometimes it would do this, where it's going. You see how that there's a ridge there, and then I would push it down, and it worked fine. I always try to make things easier, especially when it comes to resin or pouring or anything, but especially that, because it's so much can go wrong with it. So what I did is I took the canvas, flipped it over. This was before it was resined, of course. And I measured. I took my tape measure. And I measured. I know this is a 10 by 20. It's not perfect, but it's close. I took my tape measure and I went, excuse me, inside. And it's roughly just a little over 8 inches. The 8 inches stops here. The edge of the canvas, push that back where it belongs, really stops here. So you have a bit of from here to here. So I would actually try to close that gap. Instead of trying to get to close that gap, which is significant when you're trying to measure poster board to fit your canvas so that you can use it to support your canvas so that it doesn't sag. Water will help it, which I spray my canvases and that's not what this is about, to tighten it up. And then when I go to pour on, it's nice and tight. That's fine for paint, but once you've painted on it, and then you're gonna go lay resin, resin is very heavy. So you wanna support the back, and this is how I've done it with the poster board. And I have several sheets of poster board downstairs that I bought, that I ordered from Michael's. I have some that are very thin, I have some that are 1/2 inch, and I have some that are 1 inch, and they come in very large sheets. And I bought some in varying widths. So what I did is, okay, I know that this is not quite, so here's the 8 inch, and here's where it would go flush against these. So as I said, I would try to close that gap. Well, this time I decided, aha, let's not do that. Same with this side, okay? It was just a little bit short, about that much. When I went to measure it, it was, I have my T-ruler here, so I always use to cut anything with, because it's, you know, cardboard and a box cutter or X-Acto knife. So this is 20 inches. So instead of, so I put that against it. So if I tried to go flush against it, it's about 18 1/4. So I'm gonna go 18. And just as in the last video, I took my T-ruler and I measured out, you know, the 8 inches this way. Let me turn that over, what a mess, huh? Okay, so I took my 8 inches and then I took it all along and I marked, you can sort of see a little bit of my ink marks here. And I made dots along the length so that when I took my T-ruler, I just kept it flush against those, and I knew I'd get a straight line. You make your marks, you go along, you take your ruler, you go along, and you just make your marks so that when you go to cut your rule, you know, your thing, I then would do this, and then I would take my box cutter, for example, and then go along the line that I had, so I knew it's a straight line. So I did the same with this. I went along, and I did that. Then I took my canvas, and not on this side, I plopped it in there. So it goes, boom, comes right out. That is exactly what I wanted. Exactly how I wanted it to be. Just to fit in there so that there's just a slight amount of room, but I'm not struggling with it. Now, there's no problem with that, because even though it comes right out, what I did is I took my tape and I went along, part of it on the canvas and part of it on the poster board. So that when I go to pour on this, and I'm not taking this off, I might as well keep it on here and use it. When I go on here and then I do, say, the other side, like this, part on, part off, so you can see that the tape is on the wood and also on the poster board. Smooth along, cut the tape. And I actually did the other sides too. Flip it over, nothing happens. Now I will tape the side. I tape all 4 sides. So it's not pushing up against it, but it's not falling out. It's actually perfect, because when I go to pour anything on it, it stays. I mean, it's perfect. Look at it. And there's no ridges along here. You know, there's nothing sticking up. So that, for me, in my world, was a game changer. And I already showed you how I tape the sides. I take the tape on the piece. Once I pour it on it and I decide to resin, I take the piece and I overlap it between this and this. First I put it on the edge only, so that part of it's sticking up, so there's a ridge. And then I take another piece and I go between here and I overlap it. For example, if this was, say this was a whole, okay, so here, for example, say this was a long piece of tape, I would tape the side so that it would be you know, a piece like going along here, and then there would be just a slight amount of piece sticking up here so that the resin, now this is not exact, but the resin won't spill over. So I'd actually make that a little higher. And then I take another piece and I go half between and half under. So now the resin trying to get through that, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's perfect. So that's the way. So let me show you the pieces again, and I'll show you how they came out. But it just came out so, that method, it worked so well. So well. Really, really happy. That was one piece, and then the other piece, as I showed you, is right here. So now this really looks like it's underwater, actually, doesn't it? So there it is. That's what I did. And I'm going to do that from now on because it worked. It really did work perfect. When this gets hard, you see how this is, I think I showed you, this is really soft. When it gets hard, I will then, because this is still curing, it's only, you know, it's only hasn't been a full 24 hours. I resined it last night. It's still curing, but it's hard enough now that it's safe. You know, I had it covered to avoid any dust. I covered it with a piece of poster board, as you saw in one of my other videos, and I don't have to resin this again because it came out exactly the way I wanted it to, the way it should. Okay, guys, that's it. Have a great day, and yeah, have a great day. Thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.